Perfect. Welcome to the Ohio Association for College Admissions Counseling Virtual College Fair, and thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera, microphone are off so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at stripescan.com/Ohio. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen shared so that we can get started here. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate you learning about opportunities in the United Kingdom today. So I am joined here today with two other colleagues from English universities. My name is Alana Stewart. I represent the University of East Anglia. I am based in Michigan, so just north of you. And so I help out students that are based both in the US as well as students in Canada. And so now I'll turn it over to Bill to introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Bill. I'm based in Southwest London, and I help students from the US and sort of across the whole country, and indeed your state, to their application over to the UK. And over to Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I am based in Manchester, working at Manchester Metropolitan University. I actually look after the whole of the Americas, so from Canada right the way down to the bottom of Latin America, as with both Alana and Bill assisting students in doing their applications and coming over to the UK. We've got the presentation. We're going to talk about studying in the United Kingdom. And Alana, I think you're starting off first, aren't you?
Awesome. So we are going to give you a broad overview of everything. And then after that, we're going to kind of start into a fact or fiction section, which should be fun, hopefully, to dispel any rumors that you may have heard about studying in the UK or things that you think about. So to start off, just to establish the fact that the UK is made up of 4 different countries. So that is Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and England. In case that you weren't aware of that. There are over 160 universities in the UK. The vast majority of these are in England, but obviously the other countries have universities as well. They are mostly public, so that means they are government kind of structured and run. There are very few private universities in the UK if you're looking at those. But again, vast majority of them are public, which just means, again, they do get some funding from the government. The oldest university is the University of Oxford, which was founded in 1096. So the UK does have a very well-established system of education and very reputable throughout the rest of the world. Now, within those other universities that you'll find, there's terminology that's kind of thrown around that might be useful for you to know, or kind of different designations or way to segment these universities. So one term that you might hear is the Russell Group, and this is a distinction for kind of those research intensive universities. The biggest comparison, or the best comparison I think we can draw to a university system in the US or a university grouping, is the Ivies, but it's not quite really the same. But again, if you're looking at those tend to be, again, highly ranked research intensives. However, I will tell you there are some other great opportunities for research intensive universities that are also highly ranked that aren't a part of the Russell Group. So it is important to kind of look outside of this and not just assume that if it's the Russell Group, it's not a great institution, because that is indeed not true. There are those designations under that of ancient red brick, plate glass, and post 1992. These terms refer to kind of the different eras of when universities were found. So ancient are the oldest, red brick is kind of that next group. Then plate glass is the universities that were founded mostly in the 60s. UEA is actually a great example of that. And then you do have the post 1992. So those were the more recent institutions that have those designations. Again, within all of these groupings, you're going to find excellent institutions. You may not even hear of an institution refer to themselves as one of these again, but these are just kind of broader categories to be aware of. Within the UK, just to confuse you a bit, there are a couple different systems. Scotland is the outlier in the system in that it has a 4-year undergraduate degree, and they are slightly more flexible than the rest of the UK. So within the UK, it's not usually typical for students to change their major, and you do have to know exactly what you want to study because you apply directly to a program, and all the programs you apply to should be similarly aligned on the application, which we will talk about a little bit later. England, Wales, and Northern Ireland are 3 years, which means it is shorter than the time you will spend in the United States, which is definitely a perk of studying in the United Kingdom. And these are 3 focus years. So both in Scotland and within the rest of the UK, you tend to only do the subject to which you've applied for, so you don't have those general education requirements, which makes it, again, very nice if you know exactly what you want to do. And finally, as you're kind of going through looking at universities, you might find that there's a region with certain strengths, and so the university plays very well within that. So if there's kind of a business hub, the universities around it will be very much centered on business. Same thing maybe for renewable energy, or if there's an engineering sector, there might be a university that might serve that a little bit better in that region. So you can kind of try to see those linkages and what that will mean to you later on if you end up looking for a career or even an internship while you're studying in the UK. Thinking about, is the UK a good choice for you? There are a couple considerations. So number 1 is your academic profile. Do you fit with what we're looking for, both GPA wise, and if we do require any testing, which a lot of us will require AP, IB, SAT, or ACT. Although we do understand the need to be test flexible, especially with COVID, you do have to look at our individual requirements because all universities have different requirements. Your academic motivation. So again, do you know exactly what you want to study? Are you self-motivated, or do you need somebody to push you? Because I will tell you that although you're not by yourself within the UK, you do need to push yourself a little bit more independently outside of the classroom, because nobody's going to be sitting there making sure you do the assignments or do the reading. This also goes very well with learning styles and your strengths and weaknesses. Again, do you write very well? Is that an area you want to go into, or are you more mathematically minded? Do you learn by lecture, or do you tend not to learn by lecture and need something a little bit more hands-on? That could help you determine where the university that you want to choose, and also what you choose for your career path. Personal characteristics include things like being adventurous, things like being independent that I mentioned before. We tend to think that people who are looking at the UK have traveled before or are well-traveled from within their family or other opportunities that they've had. There's also participation in extracurricular. So we don't necessarily look at this per se at an application, because we very much look at your academic and your performance. But is there extracurriculars that you do participate in that you plan to participate in the university? Because once you get to the university, this is going to be how you make friends outside of your academic area. And then finally, your parents. So are your parents going to let you go to the UK? Hopefully after a conversation with us, that will be something that they're a little less afraid to do, because I do think there's always an initial apprehension with a lot of parents. Although some parents think it's an excellent idea and wish they would have done it themselves, and so are very supportive of their children. It really just depends on your scenario with your parent or your guardian. So then looking again at choosing an institution, same thing you would look at within the US, you're going to look at in the UK. So look at the size. Do you want a very small institution? Do you want a medium-sized, or do you want a very large institution? The UK has a wide variety of all of those. And so you can absolutely get lost at one of the largest institutions in the UK, or you can choose one where you might have a little bit more personal attention and be within a smaller class. Also look at the specialisms of the institution. So what we are known for, what we do well, that again goes along with potentially some of those regional economics or what's going on in the region. So look at that, because obviously you want to go to some place that does well in what you want to study. Look at the location. We do have city universities, so located obviously in the great city of London, although that tends to be more expensive as an option. We also have places like Manchester. We do also have places like Norwich, which is where UEA is located, and everywhere in between. So I think you're going to be able to find a good fit for yourself. And then again, that cost piece. can you afford to be within London, or looking at other places, is that more realistic for you, and kind of finding that price point. But I will tell you that at the end of the day, we do look cost comparable to an out-of-state institution, regardless of where that is in the UK. So hopefully for you, you're looking at that price point and averaging that out for the 3 years that you're looking at studying in the UK. So this is the time we're going to go to the fact or fiction section. And so this is kind of one of the funny facts. We all know about Harry Potter from England, but the myth here is I'm going to study at Hogwarts. And while we all wish we were probably going to, and that the wizarding world really did exist, this is fiction. So you can see a sample of each of our universities here. But there are only 6 ancient universities in the UK. So again, that was a designation of kind of the times when a university was founded. And there's only, again, 6 of them. That's not to say that some of us don't have those really cool older buildings that you might be looking for, but you're not going to find Hogwarts as a school. And again, the vast majority of us were open in the 19th century or onwards. So we do have more modern architecture, and sometimes that's within the city. So kind of a little bit more spread out within a city, or you can also find campus locations too, where it's a bit more like a self-contained campus where all the buildings are in one area. You will also see the collegiate universities. That's Roehampton is actually an example of one of those. So University of Roehampton is a collegiate university. Again, you may not hear that terminology, but basically it means it's made of different colleges that came kind of together to form one university, or basically different colleges. Again, you won't necessarily notice the distinction too much when you're there, but it is just another category. And it says that last point, don't worry, there are still castles everywhere, and that is absolutely true. There are castles in a lot of these cities and a lot of the places that you'll be able to explore. And if there aren't enough for you in the UK, the EU, so mainland Europe, is just over the English Channel there for you. So, well, a good opportunity to explore the UK as well as the EU. So now I'm going to turn it over to Bill, who's going to cover the next fact or fictions for you.
Thank you, Alana. So yes, the next fact or fiction coming up is, it'll be much harder than studying in the US, and that indeed is a fiction. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. So the differences that you'll have between a US degree and a UK degree. Your subject that you choose to study is chosen at time of application, not when you arrive, not when you turn up and pick your elective modules. You apply straight to the program. So if you wanted to study, say, forensic psychology, you apply for forensic psychology at, say, Roehampton, and you will study that from day one. If you want to do business, say, at Manchester Met, you also do that from day one. If you want to do medicine at UEA, you apply and you study medicine at day one. So there's an opportunity to specialize in a very specific area at bachelor's level. So you've obviously got programs like business, like maths, like psychology, for example. You've also got other programs like ethical hacking, Viking and Norse studies as well. One of my oldest students I got working at another institution was a 92-year-old nun who was studying death studies, and I thought that was always quite interesting. So 2 things, why not look to the future? So there's lots of different things that you can do at British universities, and one thing that you might notice different than an American university is that your professional specialisms are there at the beginning. So you might have been surprised when I said that you could study medicine from year 1, but yes, that is true. You can study medicine. You don't have to do pre-med if you study medicine at a British university. So you can do this from also day 1, which I think is quite a sort of a brilliant option for you as well. So think about all those positives that you've got what's in a UK degree. If we go to the next slide, please, Alana. So I studied at a British university, so I know a bit about how it was taught. And I believe so did Lindsay as well. So it was a little bit time ago for both of us, but we both definitely did do it as well. So there's a sort of a few different ways that British degrees are taught as well. There are big group lectures. They're those ones that you see in sort of college-based films with sort of a professor standing in front of a whiteboard or a chalkboard, tutor-led discussions, subject focus. So yes, you will do sort of maths 101 and business 101. We don't really call them 101. Some of us do, but you might have introduction to business, introduction to maths, that kind of thing. And then generally after these lectures on most programs, we'll break up into what are called seminars. And these are smaller student-led group discussions. So you might pick a subject from the lecture. Say if you're doing psychology, perhaps it was, child psychoanalysts. And then you will go discuss sort of the ethics and the sort of real reasons behind that lecture. And this is where your reading that you've done before, which we hope you do, because there is a lot of subject-led and student self-directed study expected of you at a British university. The reading lists can be quite long, but if you're coming to study a subject, you should love your subject, and that's why you're there. So you're going to study that subject forever. And well, not forever, for 3 years. Then you've got what are called tutorials. And I used to really use these quite often. These are often individual or small group meetings with your academic. And this is when you really get to pick apart the subject in detail, or perhaps you have more feedback on an essay you've written or some work or a presentation that you've done, that kind of thing. So you've got kind of your sort of pyramid of how sort of it will work. So you've got your lectures at the top, your seminars for that really sort of detailed discussion. At that bottom, you've got the tutorials that you may book. Obviously, there's differences at some universities. Some universities may sort of do sort of a more lectures, more seminars, a mixture of all of the sort of three as well is generally what is expected. And obviously there are practical programs. For example, I know that dance at our university does have obviously some lectures, but it obviously has more group work and a lot more sort of sort of time to practice and sort of learn your craft. And then obviously some programs might be lab-based. For example, biomedical sciences, you're actually going to be out in our labs working on sort of lots of different things in your chosen field. And then obviously there might be workshops. And there is obviously some field trips that you get to avail while you're here as well. So that's quite a good option for you. For example, we have a field trip that for the sort of zoology students, they go off sort of into the sort of into wildlife and get to see it in sort of different locations. I know saying into wildlife is quite vague, but I can never remember the location that they go to. So can I go please, next slide, please, Alana? So I've mentioned a little bit about self-directed study, and that is lots to do with the study time that we expect you to put in outside of your hours. So you might have only a few hours contact time with the lecturers every week, but we have an emphasis on doing read around your subject, read your pre-reading for your seminars, your workshops, your whatever really, because you need to know your subject inside and out. But you are studying it from day one, so theoretically you should love your subject. Assignments, sometimes generally at the end of the semester or terms, or depending on how the university structures it, rather than continual. Obviously, this does vary by program. I know that some of our programs do it sort of at the 6-week mark, or smaller assignments sort of throughout the sort of semester and bigger ones at the end. And the course structure is available to you on each of our websites, so you would know how your course is structured. It will be listed module by module. And if you don't find it on our websites, you can email myself, Lindsay, or Alana and get a full breakdown of the programs year on year. There is a personal tutor system, and that is kind of to establish your relationship with the university. And this is a personal tutor is there to design to make sure you're achieving the best of what you can study. So often it is someone that runs parallel to your program or on your actual program. And this makes sure that you've got a one-to-one relationship with academic staff. And these people that are teaching you, actually, a lot of them have been producing world-leading research in their field for a number of years. And you can see sort of some of the research output that they're putting on each of our universities' websites. And these are the people that will be teaching you. Now, there are opportunities in our programs for sort of practical experience. So some students might choose to do placement years. For example, a lot of business programs do that, or we call them sandwich years. You're not going to have a year making sandwiches. It's kind of the interesting stuff that is sandwiched in between your degree and your study. So, perhaps a year in industry, that kind of thing. We also do offer study abroad schemes as well. So the UK government have announced fairly recently in the last week about our replacements for the EU Erasmus program called the Turing program, which students will be able to apply for. More details are coming out on that as we sort of literally speak. The government are announcing, so I won't go into it too much, but it will have partnerships across the world, I am told, by the UK government. There is also integrated masters program. So in your 3-year program, it might have a master's at the end of it as well. For example, I know that my university definitely does have some examples of this. It means that in your 3 years plus your last year, you will have a master's program. And think about that in a positive. In the US, you might have just done your bachelor's in 4-5 years. In the UK, you could have your bachelor's and your master's in an integrated degree in 4. Right, next slide, please. I'll save time and money compared to studying to the US. And that is a fact. Thank you, Alana. Next slide. So the price is right. I can never remember who hosts it in the US, but you will pay 1 year less than a US degree on average. So yeah, if you sign up for a 3-year degree, generally, if you pass all your exams, you pass your modules, you will finish in 3 years. And the tuition fees are quite competitive. So you may notice on our website, sort of the fees are in pounds and that kind of stuff. If that does sort of, confuse you, sort of, literally look up the exchange rate and have a look at what that will cost you year on year. And you may notice that we are significantly cheaper than if you're thinking of studying out of state or even some in-state private colleges. We are significantly cheaper sort of for the whole cost of attendance as well. So we do like to keep it competitive. And we do have lots and lots of scholarships available. Each of us have got an array of scholarships that I'm sure if you've got any questions at the end or you email us, we can tell you about. But there is lots of things that you can get to sort of even shave a bit, sort of a few grand off those fees as well. And most of the universities in the UK are, approved to receive federal aid or direct loans and even veterans benefits. I know that we receive some veterans every year. We receive a lot of federal aid, and each of us will have USA specific sections on our website that kind of tell you a little about this. And what I'm saying really is that, yes, you can afford to go to the UK. And I will hand over to Lindsay now for the next slides.
Thank you very much, Bill. So the next, fact or fiction, it is difficult to apply to the UK. Alana, it is fiction. So when you apply to the UK, we have a system called UCAS, which is UCAS, which stands for the University and Colleges Admissions Service. This actually is a little bit like the Common App in that you make your applications through this and it gets sent to a number of different universities. This is the system that all the UK universities use. It allows you to pick 5 choices of university and or program. You can pick 5 programs at one university if you really want to, but we don't really recommend that. Generally speaking, if you're looking for a subject area, so as Bill mentioned before, you start with the program that you want to study. So the expectation is that you'll be applying for, as to use Bill's same example, forensic psychology, but you'll be looking at forensic psychology at different institutions to give yourself different options. So the expectation is that you won't have more than maybe 2 programs at the same university. You have up to the 15th of January for what's called equal consideration to make your applications. But many universities do accept international applications until the 30th of June. After the 15th of January, it is sometimes a good idea to get in contact with some universities who may have competitive programs because they may close earlier than the 30th of June, but a lot of universities will accept those applications afterwards. There are a couple of exceptions of this. So Oxford and Cambridge, the deadline for those is actually the 15th of October. So applications do only open at the beginning of September. So you have about 6 weeks if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, and you can also only apply to one or the other, not both. Also, if you're looking at medicine, dentistry, or vet science, you can only use 4 of your 5 choices for those. So you can have 4 medical schools or 4 dentistry schools, 4 vet science schools, but then your 5th choice is usually what is kind of considered almost a backup. So a lot of students will choose something like maybe biomedical science. This is just due to the competitive nature of those programs. The Common App, which I did mention before, that is used by some UK universities, not all. And some universities will also accept direct applications. For many, this is only if you're not using UCAS and you're just making a single application. You can make the one application to them. But it's important to just kind of check, because not every university will accept direct applications. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so my social life. So we're moving outside of the academic world now. My social life will be tea parties and pubs. So this is fiction, unless you want it to be a fact. So when you're not studying at UK university, we do have a lot of choice for students for what you want to do outside of academic study. On our next slide, Alana, we've got some options. You do, obviously, as Alana mentioned earlier, we are not far from Europe, so there is obviously that access to wider travel outside of the UK, but a lot of it to get around the UK is actually quite easy. Rail travel, flight travel, when we're allowed to get out and about a little bit more, there's always a lot of ways to get around and actually see a lot of the UK. Every institution in the UK has what we call Students' Union. This is a kind of an independent body that offers both social and kind of pastoral care as well. So the student unions in most universities offer a lot of different clubs and societies that you can join, whether it be sports or something else. There's also the options to create your own clubs within the student union if something that you want to do doesn't actually exist. But the student union is also there as well for kind of pastoral care and support and advice. So it's always good to kind of be involved with your student union. This active kind of student life, we have sports and societies, but also many of the kind of larger cities, particularly. So for myself and, Bill being in London, Alana probably is maybe in a kind of slightly smaller city, but there's also a lot kind of going on because there's usually often more than one university. So actually you can see there's a lot of students, kind of societies and student clubs and things outside of those universities. There's a lot that you can get involved with. You don't have to be kind of just restricted to the Students' Union and what's going on campus. Next slide, please. Okay, so when you're doing your research, there's a lot to kind of take into account and kind of sit down and look at before you even start to actually fill in your application form. So we've mentioned UCAS. You have kind of what we call tariff scores. So when you're looking at UK universities and you're looking at the program that you're interested in, when you look at entry requirements, you may see for some but not all universities what's called a UCAS tariff score. This is just how we kind of work off A-level grades. It's not something that you necessarily have to be too concerned about if you're doing kind of SATs or the ACT. Some universities will tariff the AP test, but not all of them. So again, it's making sure that you're doing your research into those different institutions that you're interested in. There's a website called Discover Uni, which has a lot of different metrics about kind of student satisfaction, where students have gone after graduation, kind of popular programs, all those things. So those kinds of, that is a really good website to have a look at, just to kind of get a little bit more detail about kind of statistics on the university that you're interested in. You might see a lot of information about rankings, but these are very broad and can often be quite different. So you may have global rankings, local kind of rankings, course rankings, national rankings. So again, when you're looking at these different things, look for those universities that you're very specifically interested in, look at their kind of maybe overall ranking, but also look at the program rankings because they can differ quite significantly for many institutions. A lot of our programs and a lot of our universities also have different kind of accreditations. So you have the TEF, which, as you can see from the image, is Teaching Excellence Framework. We have QS, we have the REF, which is to do with research. A lot of programs also have individual accreditations as well, so particularly around business, engineering, some of the health programs as well. you're looking at more vocational careers, such as nursing and health, there's a lot of vocational resources that you can read up on, such as NHS careers. And then, as always, there is us, people like us. Every university has one of us at least. And then also current students. We're always happy to try and put you in touch with current students and even alumni if you want to have a chat with somebody, just to see what their experience was like. And I think now we're moving on to the Q&A. Good. Our contact info for anybody, you can kind of get in touch with any of us. We've got the QR codes if you want to give those a scan. That'll take you to different pages for our websites, and they're all of our contact information as well. If you want to ask any of us anything very specific about our own institutions or any general questions.
All right, so if anybody has any questions, they can post them in the chat, but we'll kind of kick things off. I think one of the questions too we get asked about, and we didn't necessarily cover it, is requirements. So I thought we could just go through each of our universities and kind of talk more broadly about the requirements that we have. If we want to go ahead, we'll just go with Bill and then Lindsay, and then I'll go ahead.
Sure. So bachelor's requirements sort of do sometimes vary by program, and all applications are read on an individual basis. But the general GPA for if you're doing a bog standard high school diploma is around 2.8 and above is when you would be taken into consideration. If you've got lower than that, we will sort of more guide you towards our foundation years, which kind of is a year before you come and study onto the main programs. There is some standardized test requirements that you may sort of need to sort of hit as well to get those sort of to get onto programs, and they are all listed on our website which programs require which standardized tests. And I know there has been some standardized tests changing this year in the US as well, so if it is, and it's a bit confusing for us still as well, as it might well be for you, but if you do have any sort of questions, do get in touch. And often if they're getting quite specific when it comes to quite a sort of a meaty subject that requires a specific subject requirement, we will ask for sort of requirements in those. And generally sort of, SAT subject tests are at 550 plus, and APs are at 3+. We do also, if you are one of those students that is for credit transfer, you might be watching going, oh, well, I've actually studied at a university for 2 years already, and I'm doing my associates. We do also accept credit transfer students as well, for 2 or 3 years completed study, or for your bachelor's, and would require about a GPA of 2.6 for that. But here's the kicker: at least 50% of your classes would have to be in that major as well. So if you're coming to do psychology, we would need at least 50% of it in, say, a program like psychology. I don't know why that's the only thing I can think of today. Let's say business as well. But that generally are the entry requirements that we've got there. But as I say, the link that is on these QR codes will take you directly to our USA page with my lovely contact details on there as well. But I'll throw over to Lindsay for her general entry requirements.
Thank you. We're kind of fairly similar. We have a 2.8 GPA, and then and that would get you into our foundation year. And then for entry into year 1, you'd be looking at the standardized tests again, so ACT, APs, or SATs, depending on what you've taken, or the first year of your associate degree. Again, we are also kind of happy to look at those. One of the things I will say, when you're doing your research, so I mentioned before about looking kind of on the websites and looking at the program and the entry requirements that might be listed, it's important to look at any subject-specific entry requirements, because they tend to be what most universities will then be looking for as an AP. So for example, if you're coming to do biology, you will probably see that UK students will need to provide biology A level. So most universities would then be looking for biology as an AP. Or if you haven't done the AP, but you have done maybe some dual enrollment, or you've taken first year of a kind of a biology related program, we may be able to look at that kind of credit from a university as well. But it is important just to kind of see what subject specific requirements there are for UK students, just so that you can consider those when you're doing your own research and making sure that you meet those entry requirements. Alana, I think apart from that, mostly we're very similar to Roehampton.
Yep. And I was going to say, we sound more difficult after hearing that. So we require a 3.3 or higher GPA, and we have the same thing, AP, SAT, or ACT. So ACT is out of 27, SAT is out of 1280 or higher, and we do require subject-specific requirements, as Lizzie has stated, in the form of an AP, and those AP exams just need to be a 3 or a higher when you take them. So again, we do understand the need to be test optional, especially if you would be looking to apply this year, you know, because that is still the possibility of you being able to apply and get a spot in the UK. So if that is the case where you're not able to take absolutely anything, an ACT or an SAT or APs because of COVID, let us know and we can work with that, because we are flexible at the end of the day, and we do understand the need to flex because of COVID. So we do have that understanding there. So then I think the next thing we'll just have, let me just check really quick to see if there's anything. If one last bit on that too, my colleague Bill reminded me. So if you are applying to maybe a more competitive program, maybe something in the health sciences, there may be an interview required, and that's usually done online, except if you're looking at medicine. Medicine's totally different from anything else you're going to be applying to. So please do have a conversation with an admissions rep or an international officer like us prior to applying. But with that, you would, with medicine, again, specifically, you probably have to be in person for that interview, barring any restrictions because of COVID. But also you might have to have an audition or portfolio. Auditions obviously work for a lot of the performing arts, and then portfolios, maybe if you're in something more creative or architecture, you might have to supply that, or even something like creative writing, you might have to show writing samples. So please just know that, again, everything is very cut and dry in the UK. So that's the nicest bit, where we don't really play games with middle 50% of students who get in. We just tell you what you need to get in. If you have that and you apply by January 15th, in the vast majority of cases, you're going to be accepted onto the programs. Again, unless they're highly competitive in nature. So I think with the last bit of time, I think we'll just go through and kind of do a quick intro to the universities. Why not? We have here, and start learning about some options in the UK, because I think we're actually a really good cross-section of what there is available to you. So same thing, I'll start with Bill and then Lindsay, and then I'll end up, or I'll go last.
Of course. So yes, my university is a collegiate university in southwest London, and it's got one of the more sort of lovely campuses that London has to offer. In the fact, we've got over 40 acres of our own site, which is quite rare as well. It's got ducks, geese, you know, loveliness on site. We've been around since about 1841 as well. So we're coming up to our 180th anniversary. As well as sort of offering teaching in some sense. We've been our own sort of, when we talked about sort of how universities works and the structure, we've been our own sort of university from only as recently as 2004, but we have been offering teaching all the way back since 1841. We've got around 8,000 students studying with us on campus. Approximately 15% these days are international, so you're not going to be in a room full of Americans if you come over, but our American population is increasing year on year thanks to the work that we've been doing in America. But we've got over 141 different nationalities sort of, and we like to offer quite a diverse student experience. Some of the sort of very popular subjects for students at Roehampton from America are sort of English literature, the humanities, and we do get quite a few for our therapies programs and psychology programs as well. And they are very competitive, but they are found a smattering of US students across our 7 academic departments. But before I go on for too much, I will hand over to Lindsay.
Thank you. We are kind of different in size, particularly. We were actually one of the biggest universities in the UK. We have about 38,000 students. We're located about a 10-minute walk from the city centre of Manchester, but everything is actually all on one campus, which can be quite unusual for city-based universities. They tend to be more spread out, but we're actually all in one space, which is great. We have 5 faculties. business and law, arts and humanities, health psychology, social care, education, and science and engineering. For us, the majority of our US students tend to go into arts and humanities, which is a very big faculty. We have one of the oldest art schools in the UK. So we have been a university since 1992, but we've had teaching on our campus since 1824. And we've come from an amalgamation of things like a teaching school, art school, mechanics institute, all of which have kind of joined together. So our art school is actually one of our oldest buildings on campus, and there's a lot of choice depending on what you want to do, ranging from architecture through to fashion, design areas. We've got a new school of digital arts opening in September. So there's a lot of choice for things that you want to do. So and it's a lot of open space and excellent kind of studio areas as well. So arts is very popular with us. And then we do have students, again, psychology, similar to Bill. And then also in some of our areas in kind of events and tourism and hospitality within our business school. There are kind of key subject areas for our US students. And then I'll hand over to Alana to finish off.
Awesome, thank you so much. Now we're going to head over to the east of England, the area called the East Anglia. We are located specifically at the university in Norwich, which is about an hour and a half northeast of London by train. We constantly talk about Norwich as being one of the key points to the university because it is such a great place to live. It's won awards for being one of the most affordable cities, one of the best cities to live in, and also one of the most vegan-friendly cities. I always say, even if you're not a vegan, it just shows the eclectic nature kind of Norwich itself, and it is very well-serving to a lot of different populations of people. It is a smaller city, but it is a shopping destination for that area. So again, there is a lot to offer. It's kind of your quintessentially British city. If you saw the movie Jingle Jangle on Netflix, it was actually featured in the snowball fighting scene. So without knowing it, you have seen Norwich. But our campus is on 320 acres of green space, about 3 miles from the city center. So students and the residents of Norwich itself like to walk around the area. There's barbecues on the lake. So the green space is often very much utilized and appreciated by the students. We were founded in 1963, so we are plate glass. You can see behind me a little bit of our architecture on campus, as well as the Sainsbury Center for Visual Arts over to this side of me. And that is featured in the Avengers film, so we're also known as home of the Avengers. And so that's kind of one of our cool little facts that we have. But we're on the smaller side of larger institutions at about 17,000, with 17% of our student body being international from a wide variety of countries across the world. The programs that we're more known for are creative writing and environmental science. We also do well with business, economics, and international development. So we do have 160 undergraduate programs. So there's pretty much everything you could want to study on UEA's campus, with a few exceptions. We do offer scholarships to US students, so that's also important. £4,000 if you just apply and get an offer for your first year, and then the option to apply for more if you do wish to get up to £8,000 per year for 3 years of study. So with that, does anybody else, or are there any more questions that we'd like to go over? I think we're pretty much almost at time now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn it back over to our facilitator.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. A couple of quick reminders. When you close this window, there will be a link to a 4-question survey. Any feedback that you can provide for us would be greatly appreciated. Also, there is just one, this is one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording, as well as all of the other sessions recorded at stripescan.com/Ohio. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, folks, take care. Thank you so much.